Hey everyone, welcome back to Wimpy Studio. Today I'm here for my first ever tier ranking, and not just any tier ranking, a Diary of a Wimpy Kid book tier ranking. This is something I've kind of wanted to do forever, but just never really got around to doing it. And honestly, the whole idea of like putting together a tier ranking only for people to comment and be like, this is the wrong ranking. How dare you have this in average tier? It's just stupid. And, you can have your opinions. I don't even mind if you comment and say them in a respectful way, but don't try to act like there's only one ranking, because there's not. In fact, I've never seen an identical ranking out there for anything, especially in something like this where we have like 5 different tiers. We have 19 books to go through. I'm not doing the Rally or the Movie Diary books. I don't care enough. I mean, I like the first Rally book, but I don't. The other two were whatever. Anywho, though, let's just go ahead and kick off. We have 5 tiers. We have the masterpiece, we have the really good, we have the average, the below average, and the terrible. Now, there's not going to be a lot of the ones terrible. I'm not that harsh of a critic, those of you who watch. But, I mean, there's a few of them that will go in the terrible, just because they are. Or, and if, for lack of a better word, they're just really bad. Okay. So let's kick off. We have Hard Luck. Now, Hard Luck is a good book. It's not my absolute favorite book, but it's one of those reflection books for Greg. This and The Ugly Truth very much are reflection books. Now, I do like this a little bit less than The Ugly Truth, but not gonna lie, I think the little mystery with the heirloom and the and all of that was pretty good, to be honest. I would say the Magic 8 Ball edition was pretty cool too for that time, especially when those things were popular. Greg adventuring out, we get to see more of Fregley, and just reflecting, and him and Rally of course come together by the end. But honestly, good book. I'm gonna put it in really good. No complaints there. It's also, we get to see more of Greg's family, his mom's side of the family, and I'm not complaining because I think that's just such a messed up family, but they're so funny too as well. So we'll go in the really good tier for that one. The Long Haul. Now, this is a book I used to like a lot more, but not as much anymore. To me, I just don't like the road trip books at all, so none of the road trip books are going to get into the top 2 tiers. This book was, I would say, my favorite of the road trip books because it felt the most original, but now I go back and read it, it's just way too much happening, and it's, parts of it are kind of funny. Like, I thought, but one of my all-time favorite things, which is so messed up, but is Greg's mom sending him to the veterinarian because the pig bit him. Like, that will go down as one of my, what the actual, F moments in this series, just of the pure ridiculousness of it all. And, again, there were parts I liked. There were some really funny parts throughout, but I would just say too chaotic, and it started the long spell of bad road trip books, so, like, that's definitely not good. But I'm going to put it in average. It wasn't terrible, not great either, which is why that category is there. Old School. This is a pretty good book, not going to lie. I mean, it definitely felt like a transition. Like, from the Long Haul to Old School, there was a huge upgrade. And, I mean, I think the camp story was actually a lot of fun. And, the thread of this, like, Silas creature throughout was really good, too. I like anything where we get into a new environment. As long as it's not a road trip book, we have plenty of those. But this, just like The Ugly Truth, where a significant portion takes up in a different location, I think is really good. And, the idea of plugging from electronics, going out and being creative is something really we don't see much of Greg throughout these books doing. So Old School, I think, was like a nice change of pace from all that. So I'm going to put it in masterpiece because it was really good. I'm, not going to lie. I really enjoyed Old School. Double Down, though, not as much. I think Double Down really lacked that plot. And I know people say it's a diary, like there doesn't need to be a plot. It's just a kid journaling about his life. But if you can't rely on someone's thoughts and everything making it into a good book. That's one of my issues with the later books, is it focused too much on Greg's thoughts and fantasies and all of that. So, this one had plenty of those, and the fact that the movie storyline was only given the last 30 pages of the book was also a disappointment. Like, if you're gonna commit to something, commit to it all the way and do a whole, the whole book about that plot. So that was definitely a disappointment to me, and overall I just think it was kind of stupid. So I'm gonna put it in the below average tier. It was not terrible, but not good either. We're skipping that. The next chapter, movie diary. The getaway, though, um, I would say it was a slight step up from Double Down because, I mean, at least we got like something kind of new. I mean, it was definitely the second fresh of the. Or, I don't know. It wasn't a terrible book. I mean, I do remember it was my first ever one that I kind of covered on the channel was The Getaway and my excitement for that. So I mean, I think that'll always live with me. But again, I just think the road trip books are just so ridiculous, and I was not personally a huge fan of this one, but it wasn't terrible either. So I'm not putting it into the bottom category. Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna put it in the below average. We're gonna put it up ahead of Double Down, though. I think it was a little bit better. Change of scenery. I do like when there's a change of scenery. I think that's why Double Down was hurting so much. It's just the same old, same old. The Getaway, it gave us something a little bit different. I like the tropical setting, but still, just like the Long Haul, too much going on. It's just super unrealistic. Like the fact the when there was the Gray climbing the wall, I'm like, no, no, no. The ending, ugh. The ending of a lot of these books, of these newer books, are just terrible. I'm sorry, but yeah, we'll put it above Double Down though. So the Meltdown though, I mean, the Meltdown is my favorite of the books since Old School by far. It's such a fun book. I remember I liking this significantly better than The Getaway. And it had a plot throughout. It had this kind of tension. It was Cabin Fever 2.0, and it wasn't as good as Cabin Fever, but it was still a really good book with that snowball fight at the end. And I don't know. And seeing Greg and Rally together for most of the book was also great. I kind of missed that in the most recent book. So the most Greg and Rally we've gotten since like the originals, I would say, since like Double Down. We got a lot of Rally in the Meltdown, so I have no complaints about that. But it was just a fun book. So I'm gonna put it in the really good tier, but I think I'm gonna put it above Hard Luck because I think I just enjoyed it slightly more, I would say. So we'll do that. We'll do that. Yeah, we'll put that in the really good, slightly above Hard Luck. We're skipping Awesome Friendly Kid. Wrecking Ball, not terrible. I mean, I think I liked it more when I first read it because I thought the plotline about them moving houses was kind of interesting, but I think it really felt rushed and I'm like, and it didn't even go anywhere by the end. Like, I mean, it would have been more interesting if they committed and had the Heffleys move to a different town or wherever they were going, and all. I think Manny's plot in it too was just odd and not really relevant. So I didn't love that. The ending was the worst. I think this and The Deep End have the worst endings to any book in this, and it just got way too much. It's just a problem with the most recent books. So it had some cool ideas. It had a fresh topic with the construction and house and moving and all of that, home improvements, but it was still definitely below average, and I would say because of its fresh ideas, I'm gonna put it right there, in between The Getaway and Double Down. So yeah, skipping that book too. The original. Now I see a lot of people hate on the original. They call it boring. They just say it's not as good as the others. And it's not my favorite book either. But think about it. If we didn't get this book, we wouldn't have gotten this series. Like, that's the important thing to remember. So like, don't go hating on the OG just because it might not be as interesting, because it wasn't. It wasn't as engaging as some of the other books. But I remember reading it and it got me invested in the series. Like, that's the important thing. So that's what a first book is supposed to do. So because of that, it's obviously going in S tier. Moving up. And it's a definitely above Old School, I would say too. It's just iconic, and the Greg and Raleigh friendship is what makes that book iconic. And I don't think you can ever live up to how their friendship is in that book, in my opinion. It's just so iconic in that first book. Now, The Deep End is a terrible book. I'm sorry. It's just the worst. I've covered this book a lot on my channel. I've done like three different videos talking about how bad it is. So I don't really need to go in. You can, my opinion hasn't really changed much from 3 or 4 years ago when it came out. It just wasn't very good. It was very very bland book. Which is funny because the actual stuff going on wasn't really bland, but I just found it bland because it was how stupid it all was. And I'm like, this is just such a disappointment to the Diary of Wimpy Kid series that we are getting an edition like this that just lacks a plot. It's so repetitive from the getaway and the long haul. And all of that. So it was definitely the worst of the road trip books by far. And well, we'll get to whether it's my least favorite of the series or not. But otherwise I'll just rant and make this video longer than it needs to be. Big Shot though. Big Shot. You know, I hated on it when it came out because I thought I wanted expected more from the basketball plot line, but now that I think about it, it was one of the more realistic books. You know, I mean, it still, I think, had too much filler in it for honestly what shouldn't be a filler book when you have a clear plot like that. But I like the addition of the mom coaching. It was one of the few times I liked the mom throughout the series. And I would have liked to see Rally be on the team too. That was a disappointment, but still better than a lot of these books. And I think it has to do with the realism part of it too. It's not really good. I'm gonna put it above the long haul though. I think, yeah, I'm gonna put it above the long haul. I mean, it was somewhat fresh. It wasn't as crazy as the long haul, so we're gonna put it there. Now, Diaper Overload, I think I like the concept of it. It's a Roderick book. I love Roderick a lot. He's my favorite character of this entire book series. However, I think it would have been better if they just made a Roderick book and not have it be a Diary of a Wimpy Kid regular book, because I do think parts of it were a bit odd, and I'm like, I don't know. I think they went a bit too heavy with some of the band stuff, and having Greg just be a bystander was kind of odd. Like, I would have liked him joining the band to be a bigger role in it, and instead of just like at the end being thrown into it. And I would have liked to see Greg and Roderick's relationship kind of start to, like, that'd be a focus, but it really wasn't. It was just Roderick asked Greg to do it out of convenience. I mean, it was kind of nice to see more of Bill, I guess. I mean, he's like a funny dumb character. But honestly, I don't know. It wasn't terrible, I would say. It was definitely below average though, and I'm gonna put it right. I'm gonna put it actually below Double Down. It just, I don't know. I was kind of disappointed after reading it. I'm not gonna lie. I think they could have done more with it. It was definitely a letdown for me. An okay concept, but not really good. Now, Roderick Rules, though, is the flip side of that. This is a terrific book. It's one of my favorites. Having an older brother, I can relate to some of this. I just think it's the freshest. It has the best like plot overall. We actually see the Greg and Roderick's relationship start to grow. Raleigh still has a decent enough role in the book too. I mean, it was definitely better than the original. I'm gonna put it higher than that. Let's see. Let me go up here. We're gonna put it right there. It was a really good book. I have no complaints about it. Now, The Last Straw. Not my favorite book. I think it was a bit boring, but after the first two, I think those two were so strong that this definitely lacked a little bit. And I wasn't super invested in the soccer plot line. I mean, it was interesting to see his relationship with his dad. We don't get to see the dad that often. So I mean, I like that part of it, but overall, I just think it was just a bit of a boring book, to be honest. I think a lot of these have a lot of just fun stuff going on in it, and I think The Last Straw just simply wasn't as good. I'm gonna put an average. I know that's a bit harsh. I'm gonna put an average though. It just was not my favorite, but I'm putting it above the other two because it still is better than the other two. Dog Days, though, it's not one of my absolute favorites, but it's still a really strong book, I like the summer feel to it, giving Greg something to do, again, like old school, giving Greg something to do other than just playing video games. It does create a drama for him and Rally throughout the book, but nonetheless, I don't really have many issues with it, and it's definitely in the really good tier for sure, and definitely ahead of The Meltdown and Hard Luck. So I'm going to put it right there. The Ugly Truth, like Hard Luck, this was a reflecting book for Greg. We got to see more of his family. The mystery with the egg was also kind of cool too. Greg and Raleigh are separated, but they come together by the end. It was a very enjoyable book. It's going in S tier along with the others. I'm gonna put it ahead of Old School. Um, but like these, both of the Ugly Truth and Old School, they both have like the Ugly Truth has the lock and that takes up a good chunk of the book. Old School has the camp. It's nice to have those little parts of the book where he's in a different location. It makes the book a bit more fresh and not like a road trip book where it takes up the whole plot and just feels out of place. But yeah, these two are really strong. The Ugly Truth is just a really strong book, and I'm hoping they get a movie adaptation of that because it's really good. Cabin Fever is also a really good one, and I like the movie adaptation of it too. It kind of I mean the creature and it kind of freaked me out. I think that was kind of part of it though. It was the OG Snow story, and the Meltdown followed so many books later. It's definitely a good book. Now, would I say it's one of my absolute favorite books? No. But it is a really good book, and I'm gonna put it I'm gonna put it below Dog Days. I'm gonna put it right there. I think that's a good spot for it. And not, it's not my favorite book, but it was good. Now the Third Wheel, I would say, this one I'm stuck average or below average because it's one of the still more of the core, but it's also just not. It's lacking a good plot, and I think a lot of people don't really want to hear about Greg's love life and hearing about all of his different options and how it amounts to nothing by the end, and him and Rally are on the outs again by the end of the book. So I don't think it really made any progress in that regard, and I think the chicken pox storyline at the end was just odd, and I don't know. I just think it was not a great book. I mean, it definitely below average. Compared to all of these, I am going to still put it at the top, though, because it was more realistic than the others. I mean, hearing a kid about his love life is not unrealistic, but it's still not my favorite, so I'm going to put it below average. Okay, so basically we have the last two left. Now, No Brainer, talked about this. I don't like the book. I just think a lot of it's stupid. The plot is very much lacking. It had such a good idea to have the school potentially close down and have Greg and Rally have to go to separate schools, and I thought that was going to redeem the no-brainer aspect with Greg having to go to a different school, and they kind of did do that, and but it was just so rushed to the last like 30, 40 pages, and then he gets a girlfriend, and this is such a big thing for Greg that they break up in 10 pages. So I think this was overall one of the biggest disappointments, and the fact that they changed the name of the school. We like us fans know we've spent all these books in West Murrow Middle School, and the fact that it's Larry Mack, I'm like, no, that is a terrible continuity issue. So it was bad, but it was not as bad as the deep end. I mean, or so it's definitely going above the deep end, that's for sure. And I mean, I do think after reading this, I'm like, how on earth are these Wimpy Kid books gonna get any better? I mean, the Big Shot was an improvement, but after the deep end, and then the diaper overload, which was a disappointment, and no brainer, which was a disappointment. I was not expecting much out of Hot Mess, but if you listen to my review, I was very high on Hot Mess, which I know that sounds weird, but it was still a really good book, and it definitely redeemed it in my eyes for me because it gave it a plot. Parts of it were a bit repetitive with the road trip theme. I mean, but they didn't focus a whole lot on the road trip itself, and they had Greg being a content creator, which I hope they kind of pick back up with that maybe in book 20. I think that could be a very interesting plot, kind of short-lived, but I think that has a lot of potential there. And seeing Greg's family again was also great. Again, I love his family a lot. Rally is in the book a decent amount. Roderick's not really in it a whole lot, but he has one of the funniest moments. Another funny moment is when Roderick locks the pizza in the safe, and this is in the long haul. He thinks it's a microwave, and they kind of do a little bit of a callback to that, where he locks. What does he lock? I don't even know what he locks in. I don't know, but regardless, though, this is a very strong book, and they have the meatball plot twist, a bit rushed, but it was interesting. The meatball plot twist, and they had the plot twist that apparently Aunt Cakey and the dad dated. Not expecting that, but they came through with some of those that I was not expecting. I love a good plot twist. I would say, um, definitely it's up there with like the old school when it comes to that aspect of it. It wasn't like, I mean, I would say it's definitely. I'm debating, is this a masterpiece of a book? Is it fair to say that book 19 is a masterpiece? I'm probably going to get some judgment on this, but I think like I enjoyed it more than, and of course I read it more recently too, so maybe I'm biased, but I don't think it's as good as these four. But I'm gonna give it fifth place. I think I'm gonna go with that, and that's crazy to think, but I just think it was a very strong book, and I do think if this was placed in the middle of the series, I might not like it as much. But because it came after such disasters like the Deep End, Diaper Overload, and or even Wrecking Ball, and even Double Down, the Getaway. I mean, the Meltdown was a really good book. But yeah, I do think Hot Mess had the upper hand there. That it had a lot to prove, and it went through with it. Jeff Kinney did a really good thing here. Party Pooper is a toss up. It could be, I don't know if it'll top Hot Mess for me because I love that book so much, but I'm gonna hope it's really good. I mean, it's a birthday. Well, how can you mess it up? But then again, Big Shot was average and should have been higher in my eyes. So I don't know. I don't know, guys. Comment down below what would you do differently. I'm open to welcome criticism. I'm not saying I don't want any criticism. In fact, I think we could have some fun, friendly debating this in the comments. To be honest, this is something I wanted to do for a while. But there you go. We have Roderick Rolls as my top. Original second, Ugly Truth third, Old School fourth, Hot Mess fifth, Dog Day sixth, Cabin Fever seventh, Meltdown eighth, Hard Luck ninth, Last Straw at 10, Big Shot at 11th, Long Claw at 12th, Third Wheel at 13th, 14th Getaway, 15th Wrecking Ball, 16th Double Down, 17th Diaper Overload, 18th No Brainer, 19th The Deep End. There we go. I'm pretty proud of this ranking too. I never would have thought that after the terrible No Brainer, we would get a book in Masterpiece. It is crazy, but it was, I would say, one of the biggest turnarounds I've ever seen, for a Wimpy Kid, and I mean, well, the biggest turnaround, to be honest. I mean, the from Getaway to the Meltdown was a really big turnaround as well. Not gonna lie, and even the Deep Ended Big Shot was a decent one too. So I mean, it goes to show you he can still write good books. It's just some of them are just not good, like some of these down here. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this video, though. Yeah, comment down below what you think, and I will see you guys soon. Bye, everyone.